but just to share some thoughts with you, I suppose, and then I really would like to hear from you about the reason why you're here, and have you share with me some of your thoughts, because I think all these conventions really are an opportunity for us to get to know each other. I've worked on the show, and I'm very fond of it, and you obviously are very fond of it because you're here and convening together like this. So I really see this as an opportunity for us to get together and share common interests. My thoughts on Star Trek, I think we all would agree that Star Trek was an extraordinary show in many ways, but the one thing that I think was very significant about Star Trek, I think it was a very optimistic television show. It takes place 200 years from now, and the series Star Trek was shot, the first pilot was shot in 1964, the second pilot was shot in 1965, and then we started shooting for the season in 66, and we ended in January of 69. So that was a very turbulent period for not only America, but throughout the world. America was confronted with that horrible racial problem that many other societies now are struggling with. And of course, we were involved in the Vietnam struggle, and many doomsayers were saying that we wouldn't be able to survive this, that man's going to kill each other off, that some fanatic was going to push that ultimate button, and that bomb was going to go off, and civilization as we know it was going to be finished. But Star Trek takes place 200 years from now, and it suggests that our civilization did continue on, that somehow we were able to overcome or resolve or to deal with in some way those seemingly insurmountable problems. The crew of the Enterprise, I think, reflects that. We're multiracial, multi-ethnic, multinational, and we're working together on this spaceship called the USS Enterprise, meeting common goals or adventures, and work, and we find that we have to work together, contribute or play our role in the workings of that ship in order to survive. And so we're depicted as Earth people, truly Earth people, in all its rich diversity, plus one Vulcan. But I think that's one statement that's made by it, that it's optimistic, that we overcame that racial crisis, the Vietnam struggle. We didn't kill each other off, and that ultimate button wasn't pushed, and that bomb didn't explode, that we were somehow able to get to that point, and that civilization did remain intact. I think it's a very optimistic statement, and it was made subtly, week after week after week on that show. And I think that was an important contribution that Star Trek made and television made. And to know that this show enjoyed such success and is enjoying such success throughout the world is to us very, very gratifying. Now, I know at these conventions frequently we're asked questions about the technical aspects of the show. I really think, as far as that's concerned, the real authorities are out there. You know more about the workings of the Enterprise and all the various technical philosophy that goes behind it than we do. I was asked by a radio interviewer just a while ago in the convention room, a radio interview, some question about the workings of the helm. And my answer to him was, as a helmsman of the Enterprise, I'm a better actor. I act out what the writers have devised for us, the words and the philosophy behind it. And of course, we as actors try to make it as as full and as specific as possible for us, so that I set certain buttons as doing certain things. But when it comes to an involved physical explanation of why certain things happen, I can't respond to you. So if you'll save me that kind of question, I will now open it up for questions from you, or for some thoughts from you. I think that I would like to know what you think about the show, and what some of your opinions and comments might be on what we did. Oh, I thought you were rising for a question. Yes. Well, my favorite episodes, I suppose I always have a tendency to look on it as an actor. They're the segments that I had the most to do in, and being about the fourth or fifth banana on the show, one doesn't frequently get to do too much. It doesn't say, aye, sir, warp too, sir. I did enjoy Naked Time, because that one I got to be a little... And then there was another one where the negative side of our personnel, or a negative universe, mirror, mirror, right, that one, where we got to sort of twirl the mustache a bit. That's one of the things that I enjoyed about Star Trek, in that, most actors find doing a series really drudge work, because you get ensconced in a character and you repeat them week after week after week. It's the same character, usually the same situation. But doing Star Trek was in many ways like doing repertory theater, because each script was a stimulating new challenge. And frequently, because of the science fiction format, we became someone other than the characters that we ordinarily play. In some segments, people aged. In other segments, we got diseased and went crazy. In other segments, there was a mirror and the negative side of our personality, so that we got to examine and explore other characters, as well as other universes and other galaxies. And so, as actors, I found Star Trek a unique challenge in that respect. Those are the two, Mirror, Mirror, and Naked Time. Time are the two segments that I particularly remember with fondness. Yes. Yes, I think, it's got the good and the bad. You give up something and you gain something. In the animated version, we can show a little bit more fantastic society. There are certain budgetary limitations on the real live action form. So we couldn't build a fantastic set, those futuristic cities, or extremely exotic civilizations. That can be depicted in the animated version, and some of the creatures that are really fantastic can be shown. What I think it loses in the animated version is some credibility in terms of the movement of the actors, the expression, the facial expression. As an actor, particularly, I think, I feel somewhat disappointed that we couldn't get that fuller characterization there. And also, working as an actor, I find it a little bit restricting in that when we record the voices, we don't work together. We just sit in a sound booth by ourselves, alone with the script, and we read our dialogue into the recording machine. So that there's no sense of playing a scene, the give and take. When you do it with another actor, the other actor feeds you. The way he reads the line might do something to you. And if the woman, that has a different way of, you're being affected by, that line reading. So as an actor too, I find it a little bit constricting. But I think that's another evidence of the fact that you have been very successful in keeping Star Trek alive. If it weren't for the kind of dedication and persistence of all you Star Trek fans. I'm sure that wouldn't have come about. And thanks to this kind of phenomenon and the fact that you were able to give another life to Star Trek in the animated form, there will be another life to Star Trek as a live action feature film now, as a matter of fact. I'm sure Jimmy's told you about that already. And that could eventually lead to, again, another live as a television series, too. And so, we can quibble about the animated version, but I think that it should be seen in the context of what you have done in keeping Star Trek alive. Yes? Yes, I have a Japanese middle name. It's pronounced Hosato, spelled Hosato. And I guess my parents were in a very optimistic mood when I was born, because literally translated, that means the village of the bountiful harvest. Isn't that a bit much? Any other? Yes, sir. Yeah, our producer on the show had a really enlightened approach to it. He didn't see it as just another show that he had to grind out. Most shows, you report to the set with your lines memorized, you get on the set and go through the motion a couple of times to get somewhat used to it, and then they photograph it. But for Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry had a table about twice its size off in the corner of the soundstage, where all the actors gathered together in the morning, and we read through the whole script, particularly at the beginning of the week, when we were starting a new script. We read through the whole thing, and then in the morning we would read through the scenes that we were to shoot that particular day, and we all made our comments on it, rewrote if we thought that was appropriate at that time, added some lines. Usually we added more than we cut. But we had the opportunity to, work with it and personalize it and fill it out a bit more. And I think it did show on the screen. And that was another one of the things that contributed to Star Trek having that kind of feel, that sense of quality that it did have. Any other questions? Yes, sir. In many ways, Star Trek opened up doors for me because as an actor, I felt that I had to bring some realities and past life to all these things that Sulu was interested in. So I did do a little bit of research on that. And frequently I found those areas that I did some research in fascinating. And so on my own, again, after the show was done, I continued on with many of those areas that Sulu was interested in. Also, I'd like to think that I brought something of myself to the characterization to fill it out, too. So it was a combination of both what the producer and the writer and the director gave us and what we individually as actors brought to our characters. Yes? Well, that's an example of where, here again, I as an actor felt I wanted to, get into it as much as possible. I had a friend who was into fencing, but I myself had never, been interested nor involved in fencing at all. But when I got an early draft of that script, I thought, well, I better go out and take some fencing lessons. And I guess it was about the 2 weeks that I took fencing lessons. And I really felt that I needed to have that really a part of me, fully, personalized. And so when we got to that script and we were shooting it, I would go off behind a flat somewhere on the soundstage and I would be practicing, and as an actor, one gets involved and you get into it. And so I'd be practicing away and some crew person would come lumbering by carrying some, something with him, and I'd leap out, and the man would drop his thing and go running off, thinking about George Takei going crazy off behind him. flat. But it was just my integrity as an actor, I felt. That's a difficult question to answer. You know, an actor never really reaches what he sees in his mind's eye. You know, you see, and you want to do certain things when you read the script, and you see the characterization, you know, up in your mind, and you picture it. But sometimes when you see it on the screen in some of the brushes, it's not quite always there. And I think that most actors are very infrequently happy with what they see. And if they're happy with what they see too frequently, then they're in trouble, I think. Any other questions? Do you think it helped? Your question is, do you think it helped by solving it?
Yeah, by showing charismatic, in fact, not only applied in another galaxy, but applied, you know.
I think so. Some of the problems that seemed like crises to us, you know, was put into context and it was shown to be rather petty, you know, when you get a little perspective on it. Or I don't think we really solved some problems. We suggested at some resolution, but sometimes we left the situation with a question mark, which I thought was good. And when we did solve it, I think frequently it was, you know, with that perspective that Todd gives you. So that I think that might have been, you know, some kind of contribution that we made. I myself don't like the problems always solved for us. I think a good dramatist should challenge the audience to solve it for themselves. And I think many of our scripts did that. Too frequently we want the solution served up on the silver platter to us. And I suppose in television you have to do that, and we did do that on many of our episodes. But my personal preference is for the question mark. Yes. Yes, I've always been interested in politics. I think that's a part of being concerned and contributing to the society that we live in. I've been, I suppose, interested in politics from the time that I could participate in our dinner table conversations at home. My parents were very politically aware. And so even before I could vote in America, I was working as a volunteer in many political campaigns, the candidacies of people that I thought should be supported. And I still, you know, I'm a member of the board of directors of the Southern California Rapid Transit District, which is our local bus line, and I suppose that could be considered my continuing contribution to the political arena. I think that we all have a role to play and a contribution to make, and I think it's important that we all do that. Yes. Well, it's off in Los Angeles now, so I don't get the chance to. Whenever I'm in a city that is arrogant, I try to catch it. Yes. What would I like to play in the future? What would I like to do? Well, of course, you know, an actor always has certain roles that are dream roles. Shakespeare always is something that challenges an actor. I have done Macbeth in Los Angeles. I'd like to do, of course, you know, Hamlet's the role that all actors like to play. I think Richard III is another one. Brutus, I think, is another exciting and challenging role. And you know, sometimes when I'm reading novels, I say, "Oh, this could be made into a film." Oh, that's a fascinating role. So I like to leave my dreams, you know, open. Hamlet, Richard III, and Brutus, I think, are those that I'm aiming at. But there may be other dream roles that might come along. create something like that. So those are my dreams. Yes. I think all of us are very, very fond of that show, and you know, things have changed for many of us. We have different commitments now, and depending on how that can be worked out, I'm sure, you know, personally, each one of us would like to be back on the new version of Star Trek. That's an interesting question that maybe we should struggle with when we come to that, when we cross that bridge. It has changed, yes. We did have that pointed side curve, which wasn't of that period. And Gene Roddenberry was very fastidious about all of us getting our haircuts. He wanted that uniform look. So he had a barber there on the studio lot, and we all reported to the barber regularly. And I don't know, I suppose if we change it too much from what it was, then it wouldn't be the same Star Trek. I suppose that would be one of the things that we would have to maintain as a constant, because we're supposed to be there, you know, not reflecting the style of the 70s. But we'll see. You do read those books, don't you? No, that's the thing, you know, we feel so exposed here. We don't know, you know, of the things that you've read about us. This Star Trek Underground is really something fantastic. The other day, or I think it was about 2 months ago, I happened to be in New York, and I thought I was there incognito, but some Star Trek people saw me in a particular restaurant, and before I knew about it, there were newsletters being passed around saying George Takei was at such and such restaurant in New York, and I was telling everybody I was still in Los Angeles then. And so now here you know about all the things that we did on the set, because you've read those books. Yes, you know, as I said earlier, as an actor, I have to set for myself, you know, certain things as specifics. When I wanted to push the phaser gun, you know, this was that button, and this button was something else. And of course, the director doesn't know these things. The director comes in and directs just one show, and then he moves on to other shows. So he really doesn't know the conventions that have been set up. And so, if he wants me to go warp 6 and push this button, which is supposed to be the phaser gun, you know, that would be wrong. And I think, you know, that may have been established with the audience. So I had to tell him, no, that would shoot off the gun. We can't press that for what he wants me to do. And the man, Steve Whitfield, I think it was, wasn't it, that wrote that book, happened to be on the set when I was having that discussion with that director, and he was there writing down everything. Sort of like Henry Higgins in Pygmalion. He wrote everything down. I'm sure his notes would fill this room here. Voluminous notes he took, and that was one of the things that he picked up on the set. That's why you know about that. Let's see if there's someone else that hasn't had the chance. All right, yes.
Okay. You say you like this with stuff, aren't you worried about the podcast?
That's a question that pops up frequently. I don't think any of us, other than maybe Leonard, who did create a very, very strong character, and you know, his makeup also was very impressive. And so he may have that problem, but the rest of us, I think, all have reputations as actors rather than as personalities, and it really hasn't been a problem for me. And if you know, we should go back into it as a series, I'm sure that, you know, we've still done enough in between the last series and this one, so that it won't be a career problem for us. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm very fond of Sulu. I like him. I think he's a fun and interesting guy, and I'd enjoy growing old with him. Well, Roddenberry's done a few other things since Star Trek too. For Gene Roddenberry. Yeah, you're only as good as your last project, and I do think that Gene has been more successful with Star Trek than with any of his other projects. So it's all up to Gene, you know, for him to come up with an even more brilliant script for his next project. I think that's a challenge that he's got to set for himself. But he's a good writer and a very imaginative person and a man with great strength. You know, and in this business, it's also strength. You can have the finest script, but if you don't have the wherewithal to push it through, you know, you don't make it. And Gene has that rare combination of qualities. So I'm sure that you know, he'll take on the challenge, and we'll see. You know, we'll see. Maybe he doesn't have anything else than Star Trek in him. I think he does. Yes, it broke my heart. I like Walter, and he's a very good friend, and I was happy for him that he got a lot more to do. But you know, as I said, I liked Sulu, and I wanted to see him fully contributing to the activities on board the good ship Enterprise, and it was a source of some frustration to be off in the swamps of Georgia and not being able to be back on the Enterprise. But that's, you know, again, one of the problems with this business called show business. I went to do the Green Berets during the hiatus period, and my contract read that I'd be working from such and such time to such and such time, but we got caught by a long rainy spell in Georgia, an unexpected one, and so that delayed shooting, and I got held up, I think, over a month in Georgia. So you know, I had obviously a commitment to the film, and so I had to ask the producer to talk to Paramount and see if some of the arrangements could be worked out, and that was the arrangement that was unfortunately worked out. I came back after the Green Beret, and the Green Beret was done, and reported to Paramount. You've read the book too, haven't you? Halfway back there.
How are you into it now?
Well, as a matter of fact, I wasn't into science fiction until Star Trek, and there again, Star Trek and Sulu were the elements that opened up another door for me there. As a result of Star Trek, I have become interested in science fiction and discovered writers like Bradbury and Sturgeon, Harlan Ellison, and many of them have become personal friends as well. So I owe a great deal to Star Trek. It did open many, many windows for me. Any other guess? Oh, by all means. You know, well, in many ways, this convention represents to me the whole Star Trek kind of thing. You know, we really have to get to extend ourselves and to meet new people in new places and go have new adventures. You know, today I had a break from the morning opening session, so I went out and I roamed through the streets of Leicester. Fascinating city. I never, you know, dreamed I'd be in Leicester until I got this invitation. But because of Star Trek again, here I am in Leicester, and I discovered a museum where they have everything from German expressionist paintings to stuffed birds, bone china, rare bone china, to some old rocks, you know. Everything in life is a discovery, and you have to be open to these new doors that open up on you. And if that kind of door should open up to us, you know, traveling out into that area where no man has gone before, I think we all should avail ourselves of that opportunity. And, you know, I'd like to invite all of you to get that Star Trek spirit and come to America, where a couple of conventions are being planned now. There's one being planned for San Diego, California, in Southern California, part of the world that's quite different from England and Leicester. We have sunshine, but not all year long. Unfortunate thing is we don't have rain. It's It was formerly a desert area. So, you know, it's really a different kind of place from this, and I think you might find this interesting. You may not like it, I don't know. New York is also planning a convention next February, and that's another country altogether. And I think you might find that an interesting place to go too. So, you know, reciprocate. Do come and visit us in America. And I think there might be other conventions being put together in other countries as well. So let's continue this interchange of ideas and explorations. Now, I'd like to hear some of your opinions and your thoughts, even asking questions. What are some of your thoughts on Star Trek or what Star Trek said? I'd like to hear some of those comments. Yes.
I feel
Well, that's very flattering, but in many ways, I must say I agree with you. It's really a compliment to Gene Roddenberry and the writers that put that together. And I do think that, like Shakespeare, Star Trek has that multi-dimensional quality. I agree with you completely. I applaud that comment too, and I think, you know, we should take that comment as something that we should all, you know, carry within ourselves. Each one of us can become personal ambassadors of that thought and some of the ideals that Star Trek symbolize. And I'm really delighted that the funds raised from this convention is going to support a worthy cause that I think reflects that Star Trek ideal, preservation of the wildlife. Because that's what, you know, we talk about the Enterprise being a spaceship, but this planet really is a spaceship too. I think it was Adlai Stevenson who said the spaceship Earth. And we really have to care for the environment that we inhabit here. Otherwise, you know, we're going to spoil this spaceship and we won't be able to survive in it. And each one of us can carry that message. Also, some of the other messages that Star Trek, I think, embodied. The one of understanding each other, learning to recognize differences, diversity, and recognize and enjoying, as a matter of fact, those differences, making that the source of enjoyment. Because, you know, it'd be an awfully dull and uninteresting world if all of us were alike. It's because we're different, that we look different, we think differently, that there are different kinds of dishes to be eaten. I really enjoy English food, the indigenously English food. I know that England doesn't have a great reputation as far as its culinary arts go, but I've found that, you know, good steak and kidney pies. I haven't been too lucky with Yorkshire pudding, I don't think. But, you know, that's diversity that makes living interesting. Diversity in thought, diversity in lifestyle, differences in people, and to be able to enjoy that rather than making that the source of arguments or wars on a national scale. Now, these are all things that I think Star Trek embodied, and as you said, all of us can become the carriers of that message, and these conventions, I think, do that. And I hope that more conventions can be organized in other parts of England and in other parts of Europe. And similarly, as I said before, I hope you'll come and join in on the conventions that we have in America as well. Any other? Yes.
Well,
Yes, every day. Yes, I understand there are people from all over England here, and Scotland, and where else? Where are some of the other places represented? Wales, Ireland, and I think they're from the United States here as well. From where are you from? Pennsylvania. And New Jersey was here also, and oh, California, great. New York. Warwickshire. That's not too far from here. Well, you know, I went to summer school in Warwickshire many, many years ago at the Shakespeare Institute at Stratford-upon-Avon. I love the Cotswolds. That's a lovely country. Ah. Yes. Well, I don't know whether Star Trek's aired in those countries behind the Iron Curtain or not. Does anyone here know? I suspect that we haven't. And that's why Chekhov was introduced. I don't think it has. I'm sure that if it had been aired, that we would hear from that. But I suspect that it hasn't been aired there. Yes.
Perhaps I haven't got one to match yours.
I beg pardon?
Perhaps I haven't got one to match your television.
Do they have television as widespread as here in they don't? Ah, that could be the answer there. Yes. Well, that's very nice of you to say. It's I'd like to think that we contributed something to making Star Trek what it was. Of course, the idea behind Star Trek is that we have hundreds of people on board, and that other members of the crew and of course a captain could go into retirement, and another captain could come in. So that's the argument I understand that the studio has been pushing on to Gene Roddenberry, and there's some logic to it too. But of course, Star Trek also was beyond logic. It was a kind of a common love for each other that that I like to think that the audience shared with us. So thank you for making those comments. I appreciate that. Yes. Oh, I don't feel that the Star Trek is an obligation at all. In fact, coming to this convention was a delight to me. It's very, very flattering to know that there are people willing to spend their time for a weekend talking about and reliving some of the experiences that they had with Star Trek. And so I don't consider it an obligation. I consider it my opportunity to share something of what I enjoyed very much. I know I'd be delighted, and I'm sure that Jimmy would. I know most of the other members would feel the same way. It's not an onerous duty at all, but a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. Yes. Oh, is that so? Well, I've done other television shows that were aired in other countries. In fact, when I was in Spain a few years ago, I heard me speaking perfect Spanish on a Perry Mason I did many years ago. So what they could do is dub it into Russian so that it wouldn't sound so American. Are there any other? Yes, Robert. I'm not satisfied. Sulu could have much more lines. That's right. That's a thought, isn't it? What about Sulu for Captain? Captain Sulu. How do you think Helmsman Kirk sounds? Warp 2, Mr. Kirk. Bless you. Yes. I haven't seen it now for about 3 or 4 months. I can't remember. Have you seen it already? Have they showed it? Oh, well, I don't want to spoil your fun. See it. You'll get a little giggle out of it, I think. Yes. I'll insist on it. Well, not so much on personal problems, but both Bill and Leonard are very, very accomplished actors, very, very fine actors. And, I think, very frankly, and one has to be honest, we learn from each other. And on close-ups, Bill is magnificent. He has that rare and subtle skill to convey so much with so little. I think he's a consummate actor. And Leonard had a very, very challenging character to create there. And I think he really filled out that very exotic and bizarre character that, on paper, could have, the way it was described, I didn't know what Leonard was going to do with it. And it could have come off a very freaky, rather unattractive kind of character. And yet Leonard gave him, if I may say so, humanity, And it takes a very fine actor to do that. So I respect both of them as consummate artists. In many ways, I think Leonard and I share a common philosophy, personal philosophy as well, and in the political arena, we frequently find ourselves supporting the same candidates and causes and issues. So we work together in an arena outside of show business as well. Leonard and Walter Koenig and Michelle Nichols, we all share a common political philosophy too. So we have an awful lot in common amongst the members of the cast. Yes. I suppose that was one concession that Star Trek had to make to the dramatic, setup. We had to have the baddies, the villains, and on a continuing basis. But I think, the whole idea of having adversaries is dealt with on a very sophisticated level on Star Trek. Yes.
One of the basic ideas behind the Criminal Wars #1, the non-interference directive. It seems to me that over the past few years, Star Trek has been in danger of violating the rules here on Earth. Because the type of things that they portray have made people, I hope they've made people, and seem to disappear, being made aware of various problems and the way these problems can be solved. By that they have affected, hopefully, in the future in a better way. And there was one episode in I've forgotten the title of it, I'm quite sure people are going to remind me, where the Enterprise was sent back to 1969. And
Tomorrow is
Gary said, well, it was in there somewhere, and they were sent back, and it was pointed out that they couldn't land on Earth because they could affect the future. And it seems that by portraying the future, depicting the future, you have changed it in a way, hopefully for the better. Whereas had Star Trek never been conceived, it may have been different. I hope it has made a very real contribution to philosophy.
Lose, that's a very British term, isn't it? And I understand one sheds a tear in the loo. Is that another British term? Or you spend a penny? I love these, regionalisms, that's something else again. I think they're humanizing, and I love the accents that I hear in this country. England's a very compact country, and Americans frequently are surprised to find so many different accents and dialects here, because America is such a vast and sprawling country, and we have so very few, although we do have accents, and how the words change too, like the loo, what we call the John, or spend a penny, or shed a tear, these terms. There are a few other words too, but the ones that I'm not using that. Let's see, the hood of the car is called a bonnet, right? And a truck is called a lorry, and petrol, gasoline. I think it's fascinating, and I think, you know, it's this that, again, we talk about differences. This is the kind of diversity that makes our common language, English, so interesting and so rich. You know, this language that lends itself to so many ways of expressing itself. And I know I've kind of drifted away from the question. You want to know where the loo was? Well, you see, on my console, you don't know what's on the other side, do you? I'll never tell. Was there a hand there? No, I guess not. Well, I guess that does it. We've exhausted all the questions, haven't we? And I must say I've enjoyed myself tremendously. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I'm looking forward to another full day tomorrow. I think that the organizers of this really deserve a round of applause. So before I go off, let's give them a good